Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the TFC September Community All Hands. Even though this slide doesn't say it, our theme today is really Michigan and Go Blue. So we're going to hear from our state director in Michigan, Rob, and two awesome candidates in Michigan about their experience and their teams on TFC and how they're seeing things. And we'll hear from several other TFCers, TJ who runs operations, and take your questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm Jessica Alter. If you haven't met me, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tech for Campaigns. I'm just going to give you a quick update on where we are with it's only 48 days left. We have 124 teams. Our goal on campaigns, our goal was 116, so we've already surpassed that for 2020. 299 projects. Our goal is 309, so we're quite close, and we'll definitely surpass that. And between our talent teams, so all the volunteers, and our technology tools, we've already helped 217 campaigns this cycle, and we're pushing to hit 250, which we're hoping to get there pretty soon. So things are tracking and very, very busy. If we move forward, we're in 20 states this cycle. You can see the diamond represents where they're using our technology tools, and the blue represents, the navy blue represents where there are volunteer teams. So we're in 20 states this cycle total between technology and talent. That is the most I think we've been in 1 year. So it is, as I said, just an extremely busy time with 48 days left. And actually it's 21 because we just added Wisconsin. So things are changing so rapidly, the slides can't even keep up. So moving forward, we just added our final 2 full-time team members. T is a state director for North Carolina and Minnesota. She's joining us with more than a decade of experience in user acquisition, product marketing, and digital marketing. She's been at places like Duolingo, Nickelodeon, and New York Times. And then Dylan Holmes, following our long tradition of hiring our volunteers. Dylan has been a volunteer at Tech for Campaigns, and he just joined 3 weeks ago as texting program director, and he will lead all the texting projects this year. We've changed the model for texting to be a horizontal across states. And so if you're on a texting team, you'll actually be able to help more than one campaign. So it's a pretty awesome opportunity, and those are staffing now. Dylan joins us directly from Culture Amp, where he led product. So we're really lucky to have both of them. And we've officially ended hiring for 2020, and have just an amazing team. I feel really lucky. So I wanna, if you do one more slide forward. I want to talk a little bit about Michigan, and for that, I want to bring in Rob Harrell, who's our state director for Michigan. Rob joined us in May or June, and you'll notice from Rob's background that he lost a bet to me of some sort that I wasn't aware of, and is using a Michigan Wolverine background, which is my alma mater. Even though he's a Bruin. So he's really bleeding Michigan these days, and I'll hand over the reins to him to talk through what we're doing in Michigan and talk with a couple of our candidates. So Rob.
Thank you, Jessica. And yeah, I am honored actually to be the state director for Michigan. It's been so much fun for me. Some of the candidates we're going to get to meet tonight, I think you'll understand where that comes from. But really, through all of the great numbers we'll share tonight, couldn't really do it without all of the volunteers. I have a bunch of great volunteer teams, so I wanted to especially thank them for making this transition from a diehard UCLA Bruin to someone who would actually put this background up. But anyways, moving forward, to take a dive into what we're trying to accomplish in Michigan. Right now, we have 15 campaigns we're supporting, as well as the Michigan House Democratic Caucus. We have 24 different projects that a couple of them have been completed already that are websites, and others on the email and ad front. And then, you know, to sort of focus on why we're doing this, in Michigan, we need to flip 4 seats in order to flip the House. We made a lot of progress in 2018 when there was a 5-seat net gain in Michigan. And if we can get 4 more seats, we'll be in real business because we have a strong Democratic governor in the state house. And just to give a little bit of overall emphasis on why Michigan matters, as if you needed more reasons. It was only a little less than 11,000 votes was Donald Trump's margin of victory in 2016, and that was the narrowest margin of any state in the country. And we've seen in Michigan, and we've actually been able to use it to great success in some of our email campaigns. We've seen both Donald Trump and Mike Pence visiting, and we've had Joe Biden in the state as recently as last week. Which led Governor Whitmer to say the road to the White House goes right through the state of Michigan. And there's good reason to believe that as well. There's 12 pivot counties in Michigan out of the 83 total counties in the state that represent about 20% of the overall population. And for those of you who don't know, pivot counties are those that voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, but went to Donald Trump in 2016. And why they're important is we think, Michigan was always viewed as a traditionally Democratic blue state. It has strong union representation, and you'll see from some of the candidates that we have today, they embody all of those values. And so this 2016 hopefully was an anomaly. The progress we made in 2018 is laid the foundation for what we are going to do in 2020, which is flip that house. So we can go to the next slide. And I would like to introduce our first special guest of the night. Chokwe Pitchford is a young man that is inspiring by any definition of the word. He has taken a look at his district, which is the Michigan House District 79, which is in southwestern part of the state. And he has decided that he isn't going to wait around for anybody to come up with solutions that can improve the quality of life in his district, which has been traditionally represented by Republicans. So he has taken a look in the mirror and decided there's no one better than himself to go ahead and make that change. So without further ado, I will introduce him to you, and he can tell us a little about his story and why he's running, and then we'll be able to ask him a few questions. So Chokwe, I will leave it to you.
Thank you, kind sir. So hello, everyone. My name is Chokwe Pitchford. I am running for the 79th District House of Representatives. And a little bit about me, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Very, very, very long way away from here, near the water, and it's usually warm. I was born there. My parents moved around a lot when I was younger. Got caught up in the early 2000 crack epidemic. My father went to jail. My mother had to raise me by herself. Until around 2005, 2006, when they cleaned their slate, they tried to start over. We lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to public school there, and things seemed to be getting better. It seemed like the American dream was actually able to be realized for once by a family. And once we started on the track to seem like we were doing better, just breaking into the middle class, the housing market crash began. And if you see a common thread there, it's that George W. Bush, he had a big impact on my early life. So after we lost our home there, we moved back to Southwest Michigan, because this is where generations on top of generations of my family are from. Just about everybody I knew actually graduated from the Benton Harbor High School. So we get back here, and 2010, we're doing better. We got a new home. I'm going to public schools here, and a house fire takes that house from us, and the insurance companies decline to do anything about it. So there we were, homeless once again. It's like that carrot and stick was dangling in front of us our entire life, never really able to become anything. So 2018 is where my story really came to a head, when the Benton Harbor High School was threatened to be shut down. And at that point, I had just about had it with everybody who had never met me, who had never asked my opinion, who had never understood what my family had gone through, making decisions for me where I had no say in it. So Me and my friends, in a very 80s coming of age, Stranger Things type way, all got together and were like, you know what, we're going to save the world. Didn't know 2020 was going to be like this. We actually made the right decision. We all got together, knocked on doors, went around the district. We were going to events. And it came to culmination when Gretchen Whitmer actually came to Southwest Michigan. And in the basement of Reverend Atterbury's church, Brotherhood of All Nations, I got to speak to her one-on-one. And she told me something I will literally never forget. She said, the nexus to real representation, the way to be represented is to be that representation. You cannot wait for anyone else to do it for you. You gotta, and the conservative motto, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get out there and try to do it. And what I did was I went around the district and I talked to people one-on-one because, let's be honest, I'm 21 years old. I've never held public office. I was just graduating college. Am I really the person that you want running for office? But I went around and people actually surprised me. They said, we really don't care how old you are. We've been lied to by politicians with Juris Doctorates. I don't think you're going to do any worse. So they said there were three things that was paramount. One, we wanted someone who was honest, someone who's going to be accountable, transparent. They wanted someone who wasn't just going to campaign on lies, someone who was actually going to try to do the things they said. And they wanted someone who could truly galvanize and bring this district together like we've never seen. They wanted someone who was going to talk about the fact that prescription drug costs are crazy and we have got to put a cap on them so no person dies rationing insulin. We've got to reform our unions and bring back good paying jobs so families like mine could actually have a way into the middle class and there's not a carrot and a string dangling anyone along. And we've got to make a criminal justice system that's been on full blast this entire year work for people who look like me and for people that aren't necessarily wealthy and can't buy their way through the court system. These are the things that has this campaign at the point it's in. To let you in on a little secret, we're doing amazingly well because of that message. We have a $15 average contribution with over 3,000 unique contributions. It's the most that any candidate in history has ever raised for this race. There are polls showing me and my opponent neck and neck when no Democrat has won this seat since 1960. And I want to leave you really quickly with a story recently to give everyone a little bit of hope about this year. Is that all right? I was on the phones recently, and any candidate knows call time is absolutely, like, sometimes it's mind numbing. I was on the phones and I talked to a guy. When he answered, he said, I hate you Democrats. You're all terrible. You want to do nothing but loot, burn, riot, and steal. And I was like, has that happened around here? And he's like, it happened in America. And I was like, have you seen it in Berrien County? And he paused for a second and he said, no. And I said, give me 5 minutes and I promise you I could change your mind. He said, all right, buddy, shoot. So we started having a conversation and we started talking about racism. And I explained to him some of the problems we run into when we stereotype people. He said he gets tired of going into the store and hearing that loud, arrogant, obnoxious Black woman yell at her children. And I said, that's interesting. He said, that makes me just hate all Black people because why can't you be normal? And I'm like, so how do you feel about the people in Charlottesville that were chanting the Jews will not replace us? And he said, well, those are just one sect of people. I'm like, why is it that sect of people don't represent all white people, but that one lady had to represent us all? And he paused again, and we had about 15 to 20 minute conversation on racism before we jumped over to Trump. Before, by the end of it, to sum it all up, he's voting for me, he's considering voting for Biden, and he's going to take a very hard look in the mirror at some of his own biases. And that story I share because no one is too far gone. We have been polarized and drifted apart by some of the divisiveness and the divisive president that we have. But I truly believe in a message of unity and a message that whoever you are, wherever you're from, I can find a way to bridge that gap. It doesn't mean I have to compromise my progressive values, but it means that at a common level, we are humans, we are decent, and we don't have to go down this path. So I thank you for this opportunity. And if you got any questions, I'd love to answer some.
Chokwe, before we go to the audience for a few questions, I just wanted to follow up on something you said. First of all, thanks for sharing the story. It is, as maybe the audience doesn't know, we're working with you on your ad campaign, your digital ad campaign, as well as we're starting on your email campaign here soon. We've done a little bit of website consultation. We've done it all, and this story is inspiring every time we hear it. So thank you so much for sharing it. I want to know, you touched on something, you're a progressive by nature, but you're in a district that has been maybe a little bit less than progressive in the past. Like, how are you bridging that gap? Like you mentioned in terms of how are you finding it different to campaign when maybe some of those shared values are not shared by everybody?
So I made a decision early on that I wasn't going to compromise anything about myself to run for office. I wasn't going to try to moderate, move to the middle, tell people that I believed in something I didn't. I'm pro-choice. I'm fairly progressive. But what I started to do when I was on the phone with people I knew did not agree with me, I started to explain things in different terms. The idea of a universal healthcare system that boosts people up and makes sure that no person goes without healthcare. How do you explain that to someone that believes in private insurance and that you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps? You use actual human relatable terms instead of trying to poll test everything. Personally, how many people on this call, if I asked you, should we be making money off of someone that has cancer, would say yes? It's morally unconscionable to say yes. And when you bring that up to someone that disagrees with you, they say, that is fair. So what's the alternative? To have a healthcare system that doesn't make money off of people that are dying, a healthcare system that when you need it will be there for you. And if you have your tax dollars going into this, why not make it work for you? You complain about the fact that your taxes are too high. Why not get something out of it? And that goes to other things like economic injustice. White middle-class men do not like the fact that their taxes are going to pay for quote unquote welfare. I think that is untrue. I think those people are upset at the fact that they are paying taxes into a system that's not giving them anything back out, and they feel like they're being robbed. Why don't we as a country boost everyone up and make this a more equitable society overall, rather than pointing fingers at those that have less? These are the ways that I talk to these conservatives, and why I think I'm going to flip this district is because I don't believe you can argue with some of these points. I think when you make it a moral justification why you believe a certain thing, I think it works.
I totally agree with you, by the way. How's your ad team helping you convey that message to the district?
So if anyone has access to see these ads, they're absolutely amazing. They're these like still images that say Chokwe will repeal right to work laws. And if you don't know anything about right to work, above it kind of gives you a detailed explanation of it. But one thing I think this ad team is great at doing is reinforcing a message that I've been using since October. And if anyone working on campaigns, if I was to tell the next candidate that runs for something, you have to be consistent, because there is a hierarchy that happens. You start, you announce your message, you put it out on websites and videos and town halls and things that you do. 8 months down the road, you're going to be on the phone with the voter, and you want to be able to say the same thing you've been saying for a long time so they can see consistency. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Tech for Campaign so much. It allows me to take that consistency we have and put it in actual messages for people to see. So when I tell someone on the phone, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, I want to represent you, the first thing I get is, buddy, you're just saying what you got to say to win. I'm like, go watch my ad. I say the same thing on TV too. And they're like, wow, there's a genuine person running for office who actually believes to get away from the divisiveness and actually get to an area where we can actually have substantive debate on policy. I think it works.
And the last question from me, and we'll see if Craig has a couple from the audience, but if I'm in Benton Harbor, where do I get good donuts?
You know what? I'll make them. I can cook. I'll make you some donuts because I don't think we have a great spot. But now I'm thinking I might start one. See you.
There you go. There you go. Craig, are there a couple questions for Chokwe before we move on?
I just put the call out for someone. I'm sure they will come, but I will ask one of my own while we wait. Chokwe, when did you first decide that you were going to run for office and take this plunge?
So there's two parts to this. The first part was in 2018. After Donald Trump won the White House, I'll be completely honest with you, I was a 18, 19-year-old kid who wanted to be a director. I didn't really care. Like most people say, 2016 was when I got active. I was still apathetic. I was still in my own bubble. That's why I'm able to connect with people who don't care about politics, because I did not care about politics at a point. But 2018, I started to get engaged and active. I actually was watching the Mueller report as it was going, and I was in class at college, and I would like run back to my instructor who was very political, like, oh my God, did you see what happened? And that led me to get involved with a man named Joey Andrews, who ran for this seat before I did. And I started working on his campaign and knocking doors. And as I was knocking doors, I started to get this feeling of, man, I'm getting paid to do something and I can actually see dividends as it's going. Like I'm having conversations with people, they're interfacing, they're interacting, they feel like they're being heard. This is very fulfilling. And someone that's always wanted to be some type of a public servant, it kind of got me amplified. So I went off and I worked with organizing corps in Detroit and Atlanta, kind of cut my teeth. Of course, the thing with Gretchen Whitmer kind of pushed me to do something. But when I actually decided to run for this office, it was taking a step and looking back and saying that I'm a person, I go big or I go home. I wanted to really inspire the next generation of leaders by saying, look, there is no office too big as long as you meet the age requirement in the Constitution. Let's stop there. But as long as you meet that, try it, run for office, show people who've been doing this for 20 or 30 years that their way doesn't always have to be the right way. You can come in and really make a mark for yourself because your voice is needed and it's deserved at that table.
I love that answer. And that partially answers the next question that we have, but maybe I'll put a different spin on it, which is, you know, for you to run for an office as young as you are, that's, you know, usually occupied by someone with more experience, you know, how do you expect that to affect your job when you are elected, and how you'll and what you will bring from a different perspective to the role?
So I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I think everybody knows when your skin is a little bit darker, you got to work twice as hard, and you only get half as far. I feel like that's gonna happen in Lansing. Me and Abby are gonna have to work twice as hard as normal state reps, being 21, and we'll get half of the credit most times. But the thing is, I think we're gonna work 4 times as hard, 5 times as hard, and get more credit than most people, because Joey told me something very interesting when I first started running. He's like, there's a point multiplier system on being a young candidate. When you do something cool, it has like a Tekken plus like 5 or 6 times bonus. When you mess up, it does the same thing in the opposite direction. And I think one thing that's also going to happen when I get in office is, because of the amount of grassroots fundraising we're doing, I am going to be even less accountable to some of the lobbyists and some of the groups that think just because they give you money, they deserve your vote, because I can truly fundraise that amount of money myself. Like my opponent, Pauline, is getting, she has $642 as her average contribution last statement. Mine was about 27, and I had thousands of donations. That type of energy and excitement is only going to grow as we bring this message out and we get more young people in politics. I think you'll see a new generation of leaders that are like, yeah, you don't even really need to outlaw money in politics. We're just not going to take it. Like, we'll just get a bunch of grassroots donations and call it a day.
Awesome, thank you. So that like we said, we've got ads up and running all over the district. We hope that Chokwe is going to be a household name by next week, and then in Lansing after he wins on November 3rd. So thank you for the time. We'll get a little bit more time with you at the end with some of the team leads and our VIP session. So we thank you for that. And that is a great segue to our next guest, equally inspiring, equally as young, which makes me think I really need to question some of my decisions in life, because one of the questions we got was, what did these guys do before they were in politics? And they are so young. I mean, I know what I was doing when I was their age, drinking beer at UCLA. So I'm particularly inspired by both. And Abby Wheeler is our next guest. She's running to flip the Michigan House District 66 seat. She's from this particular area, 3rd generation, and truly inspiring. She is a councilwoman on her village council already in Matawan Village. And then maybe more impressively, she is an EMT firefighter. Her whole life, short though it may be, has been dedicated to service. And she also has agreed to step up and help her community by going to Lansing and hopefully helping us flip the state house there. And we won't get to look at it today, but you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't check out Abby's video on her YouTube channel of her putting on her complete firefighter uniform in less than 30 seconds. That is one of the most impressive videos you will see outside of cat videos on YouTube. So definitely check that out later. And without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Abby, and thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate your kind words. Hi, everyone. I'm Abigail Wheeler. As said, I am a firefighter EMT, and I started that journey at the age of 16, became a state certified firefighter at 18, and have continued that journey ever since and have loved every second of it. I am also a local village councilwoman, and I was elected in 2018 as the highest vote getter, which was a huge accomplishment, even in my tiny little town. I got my start like Chokwe back in 2018. One day my mom and I were out front of our house raking leaves. It was fall out, and our leaf truck drove by to pick up our leaves. And so we were thinking to ourselves, we don't know when leaf pickup is. How do we know how our taxpayer dollars are being spent? How do we know what's going on in our tiny little village if we don't even know when they're coming to get our leaves? So that's when I made the decision. My mom and I talked about it a little bit, made the decision to run for the village council. And I put out about 15 yard signs and knocked about 50 doors because it took 6 signatures to get my name on the ballot for my local village. And one of them, of course, was my mom.
Hey, your mom.
Right. And so I was elected and have been working really hard to improve our communication ever since, and our transparency as well. Doing things like starting a Facebook page to jump into the 21st century, and trying to keep our website updated with our tech team, who Tech for Campaigns is much better, just so you know. So just working towards that clear, concise communication, and have had some really great responses back on it. So I wanted to take the things that I have learned in being a firefighter and being on the village council at that time for almost a year and a half, and translate it to the state house. For those of you who don't know, Michigan ranks 50th of all states, so last, in governmental transparency. And that is something that we can really easily fix and bump up our score in a lot of different ways. And that is something that I'm really passionate about, is having that clear and concise transparency that we need and the communication that we need. I'm also really passionate about education. It's one of my top issues when I do talk to voters, mostly because I went to a fantastic school system where I felt really prepared going into college as an adult. And when I got to college, I had friends who went to other school systems in the district who didn't feel the same. And so I want to be able to have, even though I don't have children, I want children and the future of our country to have a fair and equal education, and then to pay our teachers and their support staff a living wage, especially right now during COVID-19. They're buying more technology out of their own pockets to be able to communicate with their students. So we need to support them through that. I am also really passionate about healthcare, like Chokwe is. My father is a diabetic and actually switched jobs to get better insurance to help cover the cost of his diabetic supplies, which no one should have to ever, ration insulin or worry about how they're going to get their medications. It's just insane. Another quick story is that my sister recently broke her ankle, and she is a server, and broke it to the point where she was not allowed to walk on it and had to have hardware put into it. And because she couldn't work and due to Medicaid work requirements, lost her health insurance. So when she went to have that hardware taken out of her ankle, she had to pay out of pocket, which for probably most Americans is really unrealistic, especially with the prices of healthcare nowadays and everything that they charge you with. So I think that everybody deserves that access to healthcare. Another thing that I'm passionate about is the environment and clean drinking water. I think most of us have probably heard about the Flint water crisis, where there's lead in the water, and it affected a lot of the residents there. In my district in particular, we have an issue called PFAS, and it is a man-made chemical that does really horrible damage to the body that can lead from cancer all the way to death, which is really scary. And one of our local universities here, Michigan State, not Michigan, sorry, is doing some great research on PFAS, which is exciting, so that we can get to know more about it, which is what we need to do right now. We need to not only support our residents who are going through this issue of having PFAS in their drinking water, which is similar to what happened in Flint, and making sure they get proper filters, and then doing research so that we can be held accountable and know what we're doing with this chemical. It's in everything from the waterproof coating on your hamburger wrapper to the waterproof coating on my fire gear, actually. So it's something that's really important. And I can say as a firefighter, we are not using AFFF foam anymore, which contains PFAS and will actually contaminate groundwater. So, and if we do use it, we have to clean it up and let the proper authorities know that it has been used so that they can try to also clean it up properly. So those are some really important things that I really look forward to working on. And when I get to Lansing, our campaign is going great. It's getting better by the day, and we're really excited. We've really got some momentum behind us, with the average contribution being about $70 and having over 450 individual donors, which is great. This really means that this is a grassroots campaign and that it's something that no one has ever done before. So we're loving every minute of it, and Tech for Campaigns is helping us improve our campaign even more, and also helping us keep our sanity with taking over some of our work for us, whether it's our email program or our ads on Facebook and our video ads on YouTube. They've done incredible things for us to try to make us that much better, to grab the attention of our voters that much more. And I'm really happy to have them. I feel really lucky that I have this great team behind me who can really help elevate our story and get it out to our voters, because I think it's one that is really unique and one that really catches the attention of our swing voters that, in my district in particular, are going to change this race. In my district, there is 100% a world where someone, unfortunately, will vote for President Trump and vote for me. And we need to catch those voters' attention and make them realize that they do have the same values that I do as a Democrat, and that it's okay to have those values because they're human values, they're morals, and hopefully inspire them to look at the candidates and not just, you know, what the TV is saying, or not just their straight ticket that a lot of people tend to vote. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Abby, for sharing the story. Just maybe like a couple questions. Again, there were some comments people shouted out about the PFAS issue is something that is near and dear to their hearts that a lot of people haven't mentioned before. How is your team, you know, you mentioned that you both have an ad team and an email team, and both have been up and running now for a little bit. How have they helped you clarify your message?
Yeah, definitely. They have done great things, like even from using our specific colors that we have for our campaign down to the language that we use, suggesting different things like buying fonts that may catch the eye, or fonts that we have used in the campaign in the past, and just really making us a clean cut, well put together campaign where we look really attractive and people will go, hey, that looks great, and they want to click on it, and they want to go see our website, and they want to go to our Act Blue page and donate. And so that's really exciting, because it not only is it making us more attractive at the beginning, but then they get into our website and they sign up for our email list, and then they get our emails from Tech Campaigns, which Tech for Campaigns, which is, they're put together so beautifully that I'm really appreciative of it. And they go, this is an awesome candidate. This is an awesome campaign. Like, what more can I do? I'm going to vote for them. And it turns into donations and volunteers instead of just votes, which goes even further, right? You know, in the day and age of COVID-19, we can't go knock doors. So having volunteers to call people is huge.
How would you and I'm sure I since I get to work with your team, your ad team and your email team personally, I can vouch for how great they are, and how what I think is another benefit to you is, and partly this is due to how great of a campaign it is they're so enthusiastic to work, like they're all bought in, and and not all of them or any of them are in the 66, but I bet a lot of them wish they could be. So that speaks to the enthusiasm that you and Emily bring to the campaign, and so we appreciate that. I was wondering, just personally, like, what would you guys be doing if you didn't have TFC? Like, what would you be doing for your email and your ads specifically?
Yeah, so Emily, sorry, Emily, she's here. I'm sorry for calling her out like this, but she and I, both of us have struggled to the functionality of the email program we were using before. We use software for all of our contacts and everything, and that also has an email platform that's a little clunky, and she was just really struggling on making it look beautiful and making it look like it's something that we want our voters to see or our volunteers to see. I mean, it was really hard to put like the proper colors and still images and moving images in there, or videos in it. And so having Tech for Campaigns has helped us, again, elevate that level of making it just gorgeous, and making it functional, and making it so that people want to sit down and read. They'll actually sit down and actually read an email. People see the title, they click on it, like, oh, I don't want this, get rid of it. They actually want to sit down and read our emails, which is really exciting. As far as our ads, I think that I honestly have no idea what we would be doing without Tech for Campaigns for our ads. And I think Emily can say the same, because she'd be like, how do I do this? Because she's not an expert in tech like this. She is a great journalist, and she is a great campaign manager, but she can't do everything. She's one person. So having Tech for Campaigns has helped her keep her sanity, helped me keep my sanity, and helped us elevate our campaign to the next level of catching people's attention, and really just making it so that people want to be in the know, want to be interested in us.
Awesome, thanks. Last question for you. What's the go-to donut at the firehouse? Like what are
So
they?
it's not in the 66th. It's actually in, I want to say the 61st, but that's probably wrong. It's called Sweetwater's Donut Mill. There's actually two of them, and they are to die for. Typically, we don't eat donuts because we leave that to the police officers, but we won't say no to donuts and coffee, because we always have coffee going.
Awesome. I look forward to having them at our victory party.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. Abigail will be joining us for a little VIP session as well after the end. But thank you to both candidates. I think you can see why Michigan is in fact the most important state in the country. So now we'll switch over. I am going to give some high-level performance data on what we're doing in Michigan specifically, not just for Abby and Chokwe's campaigns, but the 15 other, or I should say 13 other campaigns that we're also working with. We've had some great results in the last month or so, raising almost $30,000 total. In the last month, we've done close to 18,000. And Craig, who's on the line with us here today, is often envious of our open rate of 25%, and as he well should be. And I think what Abigail touched on as well is just the ability for us to get donations and volunteers in there, and we've had some really healthy performers when it comes to both those areas as well. I'll start with on the email side of things, and I highlighted 3 campaigns that were not here to speak for themselves today, and just to show some of the differences of the messages that are getting out there, but how all of them, if targeted properly, can work. I mean, we had Bill Saxon, who's a great candidate up in the Michigan House District 73. He's also the father of 2 twins who just turned 4 a couple weeks ago. And he wouldn't be the first politician to use his family to get like a couple extra bucks. And his team recognized that those kids are really pretty cute. And you can see in the email there that they're pretty adorable. And clearly his supporters in his district agreed, because they opened that email in record numbers, and it had a nice, it had a nice message to go along with it too. It raised some money, but Bill's big issue in Michigan is the reason he got into it was because his twins were born right around the time that Trump was elected, and he decided to jump into the race to make a better future for his kids. So it's good to see the team making that sort of connection with the campaign on a personal level and then translating it into results. I mentioned at the beginning, Michigan is a really strong union state, and workers are, like they are everywhere, a huge voting bloc. And Cheryl Kennedy, who is an incumbent running for re-election in House District 48, has chosen to celebrate workers in her district. And we had some great email results there by, taking advantage of Labor Day, a couple weeks ago, and sending out a personal message of thanks to them. And you can see there, like her supporters responded as well, opening at a pretty healthy rate. And just for reference, TFC, as all of the volunteer teams probably know at this point, we strive for a goal of an open rate of around 25%. So it's nice to see some of these teams outperforming those numbers. And then when we speak to outperforming, nobody does it quite like Dan O'Neill does up in Northern Michigan in House District 104. His team has also done a great job of taking advantage of events in the area. Mike Pence actually came to Traverse County and was in town and helping his opponent, and our team that's working with him on email was able to send out a flash email that very same day. It was a short and sweet message just asking his voters to chip in where they could. Small donors are a big part of his record-breaking campaign. He's raised a ton of money, and email is a big part of it. And you can see on that one, he raised in just a couple of days almost $3,000. On to the next slide, and we can talk a little bit about what we're doing on the ad front as well. A familiar face you can see up there, and you can see that it also generated great results. Like, we have transitioned away a little bit from traditional reach campaigns at the beginning of some of our ad projects in Michigan, and looking more towards ad recall, meaning do people remember when they see these ads? More importantly, are they going to remember the candidate's name when they go to vote? And in Michigan, voting starts this Saturday. It's 45 days before the general election, but because of absentee ballots, the voters will be getting their ballots within the next week, and they'll start to turn them in. So they ratchet up the intensity for all of these campaigns in Michigan as people are now starting to getting ready to turn those ballots in. And we've also
When does voting start?
I'm sorry?
When does voting start in Michigan?
It's a staggered start. The 19th is the first day that they can start churning in their absentee ballots. Michigan is a no excuse absentee ballot state. So anyone who requests one can get an absentee ballot. We had a little over 2.4 million absentee ballots in the primaries, which was August 4th. And we've already gone well over 3 million requests for the general election. So we're expecting a great deal of that turnout to be through the absentee ballot system.
And that just is if you haven't gotten on a project, we have about 14 days where we're still staffing projects. Voting is starting so much earlier this year. Our projects are going to be totally staffed by October 1st. So, and voting will have started in many of the states that we're in so far. So I think that's just a great reminder of how much earlier things are happening this year.
Thank you for that plug. I am going to take us through a little bit of business, less than 2 minutes. So I'm also giving you guys the 2 minutes warning to get your questions into the chat session and into the Q&A box, because that's what we're saving time for at the end. So earlier tonight, Jessica mentioned that we are starting texting, and we're doing it a little bit differently this year. We have 37 candidates right now signed up to do texting projects, and we'll probably do somewhere between 15 and 18 projects. We'll group them regionally. Each of these teams is a 4-person team, a team lead, an operator, a copywriter, and an analyst. You can start to see those projects showing up already on our TFC project portal. So if you go to projects.techforcampaigns.org, you will be able to see every project that we're staffing today, as well as a few more ad and email openings that will come up over the next week or so. 14 days is all we have left. If you want to volunteer on a project, if you have time for a second project, now is definitely the time to do it. If you have a friend who has been asking you about TFC or who you think has the right skills to help more candidates do better, pass the URL on to them, techforcampaigns.org/volunteers. We are still taking new, energized, highly skilled people. If you do apply for a project, please respond quickly. Make sure you're checking your spam or your promotions folder for Tech for Campaigns emails. We are staffing projects quickly. We've got more than 14,000 volunteers in our community, and that means we have a lot of people who are vying for spots. And the last comment that I have, if you are on a project, you know how lean Tech for Campaigns is. Our staff is less than 20 people right now, full-time year-round, even far less than that. Just because you're on a project doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to donate. You can donate and vote with your dollars with us. It is very meaningful. And the last slide that I'll share before we move into some Q&A, we have a special fundraising event coming next month. We've been doing virtual fundraising throughout the summer and having special guests. In October on the 14th, we have Mayor Pete Buttigieg and South Carolina Representative J.A. Moore. J.A. Moore was motivated to run for office when he lost his sister in the Emmanuel Church Massacre in 2015. This will be an awesome event, and if you are interested and able to join a TFC fundraiser, we'll post the link in the chat session, and I would encourage you to check it out. So with that, that is the content we have. I will open up questions to our full panel and spend the next 10 minutes or so answering some of the things that are on your mind. Craig, do we have anything while I was chatting?
We do have a couple. We have a couple for Chokwe and Abby around top issues in your districts, and just for maybe expediency's sake, I know maybe an issue that wouldn't surface in another district that is prevalent in yours. Maybe Abby?
Yeah, in my district, I think a big thing is the PFAS issue, just because it has now penetrated personal wells, as well as an entire municipal system. A couple years back, the Parchment City had to go off their municipal water and go onto the city of Kalamazoo's, and now have permanently switched to the city of Kalamazoo's water, which was really staggering right now. So that's a huge one. And of course, education with COVID-19 is a really big one, especially for parents and teachers right now.
Awesome, thanks. Shockwave, how about you?
I think a big issue in my district that kind of flies under the radar is water quality. In the city of Benton Harbor, there are lead pipes that haven't been replaced for as long as I've been alive, or as long as I've lived here. And a lot of people grew up not drinking out of the tap, never even crossed your mind to do so. You would drink out of water bottles, or if you had a shower that was connected to the same line, you kind of took a shower with a jug of water if you had to. And it's issues like that that kind of get swept under the rug. And it's one of the things about Michigan, when you look, if you're not from here, you would think Michigan, Great Lakes, rivers, they're probably very environmentally conscious. You would be surprised. And it's things like that that has my campaign pushing for state share revenue to go to some of these hard-hit localities to replace the lead pipes that are in desperate need, and the local governments just don't have the revenue in order to do it themselves.
That's great, thank you both. We do have a question about concerns around absentee ballots and getting counted. I know there's a lot of uncertainty in a lot of states around the processes for this, so thoughts on that and how your campaigns are communicating around it.
Yeah, so I actually work for a township office, and so I get to see a lot of what goes into absentee ballots with my clerk. I'm very close with her, And it's really secure. That's like the great peace of mind that I've gotten out of all of this is how she handles it and how they actually have to. It's mandated. So, you know, when we get a ballot in, it goes into her office. So she's in there most of the time. And when she's not in there, it's actually locked. And then I believe that Michigan just ruled that we can now start counting absentee ballots the day before, which is great because the AV activity has been so high lately. So before it was, you could only count those absentee ballots the day of, and it had to be counted by an absentee ballot board. So it's a board of Republicans and Democrats who, from both sides, have their eyes on that ballot and put it in the tabulator and count it so that there's no question about if it got counted and who saw it. So it's not just the clerk doing it. It's not just one party doing it. It's both. And there's also the ballots are counted. So there has to be the same number of ballots that were counted have to be tabulated. Those have to equal. And if they don't, then they have to obviously retabulate. So there are some really great measures that have been put into place to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And Michigan has a great Democratic Secretary of State. And so, well, transparency is not the calling card for Michigan yet. The Secretary of State's office has done a great job with like a troubling situation. And I think, like Abby said, the absentee ballots are going to start rolling in here very soon.
And I'll just add, for those of you who don't know, TFC has a pretty big vote by mail initiative that we have a full-time team working on. So we're pretty familiar with this in Michigan. And, you know, Michigan actually did not have online vote by mail registration, but they added it in June. So that has really helped get people registered, especially with COVID.
All right, last call for questions.
I think there's one question about texting. TJ, maybe you and I can take about, are there concerns with texts being marked as spam? Typically texts are marked as spam if they're sort of blasted out. We don't do blasting texts. We only do peer-to-peer texting. And we, like everything else, measure everything. And so we're measuring positive. We don't just measure response rate, we measure positive response rate. So there's not a huge concern about that. TJ, do you have anything to add?
We do track opt-outs, and our primary KPI is positive response rate. So making sure that people are engaging in a way that's meaningful.
We've got one more question from Joe, which is, you know, in contrast to some of the issues that you've brought up, what do your opponents focus on and how do you message around that?
I just want to say real quick, unequivocally, Michigan Republicans are running the 1960s Nixon style law and order. If you go on YouTube after this, type in Michigan House Republican Campaign Committee, you'll see 5 ads from 5 different candidates that all say, "Hi, my name is X. I'm running on supporting our police. My opponent wants to defund the police," and then they smile and look at the camera. It is so creepy. And it's like, this isn't the 1960s. The places are changing. None of our campaigns are really calling for a defunding of the police. If anything, we're calling for criminal justice reform in most of them. And it's like they're going to push this narrative and play fear politics and try to scare people into voting one way, which is very undemocratic and kind of annoying. And that's what I'm saying. And what we're doing to counter that is my campaign is saying, look, I keep pointing it out. This is what normal politics has been like. This is why you need a new type of candidate, because they're going to continue the same old attacks that they've been trying for 20 or 30 years to make a candidate seem like they're so radical left. Like people are calling Joe Biden a radical left. Like, what is going on? So we're bringing our message. We're coming with a message of capping the cost of prescription drugs, bringing back jobs and criminal justice reform. We're not getting too caught up trying to fight back against lies and nonsense.
Yeah, we're in a really unique situation because my opponent just came out with an ad actually stating how much she supports first responders and that we need to support them through COVID-19. And I said, thank you for proving my point. So we are working on possibly reacting to that and saying, Thank you for endorsing us, Beth. We appreciate that you want to support a candidate like me being a first responder, which is hilarious. They've also gone on the attack front of putting out a mailer of a beautiful picture of me on Zoom. And here is Nancy Pelosi, here's AOC saying that, you know, I have a radical agenda because I agreed to support the Green New Deal because our world is literally burning at the moment, unfortunately. And so that's kind of what they're doing in response. Really, they do these negative ads to get a reaction, right? So we aren't really reacting too much. We might say something like, thank you for the endorsement from my opponent who supports first responders. But other than that, we are trying to keep a positive message. You know, going negative, I've never had a good image of a politician or a candidate who has gone negative. So we're trying to keep away from that a little bit and really try to put a positive message in kind of a really divisive country right now.
Well, thank you, Chokwe. Thank you, Abby. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate all the praise and positive things you said about digital, as well as the awesome stories you've told about your districts. We wish you the best. We're all super excited. I saw many comments of people wanting to help your campaign. So when you're ready for more projects to expand, we have more energy for you. So thanks, everyone. We will wrap it up here. And you know, as Rob alluded, the candidates are going to go on to a VIP chat with a few of our team leads now. So thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. 14 days, sign up.
Yes.